So I'm out with my fiance as she tries to introduce me to a couple of her friends, and as we're sitting down at the table and we're having a polite conversation, one of the ladies there requires some dating advice. To which someone else responds, "Just be yourself." And this is like bringing a hot iron claw to my brain and scratching it viciously. This is triggering me to no avail. But fortunately, I do understand that having just met those people, it's not a good idea to be very opinionated, especially when making first impressions. So I bite my tongue and decide not to embarrass the missus. But unfortunately for you guys, you do not know my missus, so I can definitely embarrass you here by going into a rant. You see, just be yourself is the dumbest advice that humanity has ever conceived throughout the millennia. It is something so dumb that people who are mentally challenged say it in order to look smart. It's the equivalent of fart sniffing when you're at a conversation and it's just like someone asks you for advice and you say that thing because it sounds good and you heard it before and it sounds plausible, even though it never has helped anyone ever. And honestly, I think it's something that comes from America because back when my country and the socialist Romania used to have the common sense to raise an iron curtain in order to block all the information coming from the decadent capitalist West, we never had this expression here. I never heard it before seeing it in American movies. And then all of a sudden it sounds so nice. And I have to ask the question to the people that legitimately believe this is a good advice. If someone can just be themselves and everything will be alright, why do they need to even ask what they need to do? I mean, seriously, just think about it. If someone can smoothly operate through life in order to bypass all the hurdles and the difficulties by being themselves, then they wouldn't have any difficulty to begin with, and they wouldn't ask you for advice. People who do the correct things do not ask for advice. It's clear that the person is encountering some sort of difficulties and is reaching out towards you with a desperate cry for help. And what do? You smack that hand back and it's like, just be yourself. It is the dumbest thing that anyone can say. And you know what? I noticed that there are these cliches that require to be said that sound nice, and when you go against it, like when you go against the tide and you tell people it's like, no, do not be yourself, that is a bad thing to do, then everyone looks at you like you're some kind of molester. They look at you like you're some kind of an evil person. And I genuinely think this is out of frustration because they might realize that you actually could have the response that they themselves do not have, and thus they find you to be intellectual superior to them, and that's why, like crabs in the bucket, they try to pull you down. Yeah, no, be yourself, my fucking ass. You're telling me that if a person is like Beavis and Butthead, who looks at tits and go, you're going to tell that person to go to the date and be themselves? Why would you be so cruel? Like, why would you be so heartless? And by the way, I don't even think that the people usually giving this expression in the media, especially in a lot of websites, believe it themselves, because they constantly make fun of simps and they make fun of cucks and they make fun of incels and they make fun of all these groups of men who are being themselves, right? I mean, that is the problem to begin with. They are being themselves, and that is the main issue. Like, if you notice that for a long while you're trying to find companionship and it's not working, then no, you need to stop being yourself and you need to improve. Most of the time, from my personal experience, it's all about growing up and improving yourself. That is the correct thing to tell to people. And I know this is something very vast and difficult to grasp, but it depends from person to person and which problems they are facing with. Maybe some person lacks some confidence. Maybe another person lacks the skills and the know-how in order how to spark an interesting conversation. It really depends. Like you need to dig into this thing. You need to find out. But like for sure and certainly, it is not because that person needs to be themselves. It is like one of the most dumbest things that you can tell another human being. And no longer did I upload the video that I got a comment, so I decided to take it down in order to add something extra that I suppose I forgot to add the first time around. You see, Mr. Essence Flux here 2 minutes ago said that what if you think the person's only problem is anxiety? and your comment is designed to lessen that. Now, I'm pretty sure Mr. S's Flux is a very nice and beautiful person to be around, but like, this is the cope, okay? This is how people who give the advice cope. This is how they internalize the fact that they have given a really poor advice. So they're trying to get their mind in a safe place, in a safe spot, so that they can feel good with themselves. If a person has anxiety, tell them to get a fucking Xanax, okay? That is slang for Romanian chill pill. There are certain pills that you can get above the counter that is supposed to calm you the fuck down. If that thing doesn't exist in your country, okay, if you don't happen to live in beautiful Romania and you can't afford the Xanax or it's not available to you, tell them to take a shot of whiskey. Tell them to do something that's actually relaxing. You know, maybe get a sucking machine under the table so that they can get relaxed as they get like a blowjob from their latest cell phone or whatever else Apple is pulling out from the market now. You know, like the very idea that like some person has anxiety and they're telling them to be themselves, then they're going to be a person with anxiety at the date. You're again like you're not fixing anything. You're not helping the situation. Give some real life advice, okay? And not to mention like, you know how if someone tells you that you're breathing, you actually realize that you're breathing and now you're conscientious of it? It's literally the same when a person with anxiety finds out that, hey, by the way, you have anxiety and this will actually be bad at the date. And then they get even more anxious because they constantly think about it. Just tell them to get a chill pill. Just tell them to do something that's relaxing. Stroke the salami. Do something else. Spank the schnitzel before going to the date. I don't know. Whatever works for that person, but definitely not be themselves, because themselves, they're a person with anxiety. And by the way, like, this is also something that I notice a lot of people that are told at work. It's like, how should you be at work? Be yourself. Yeah, okay. If I'm a very confrontational person and I like to say things exactly how I think about it, I don't think I should be myself around my boss. In fact, you should be the opposite around your boss. You know, I remember when I was at university, there was this know-it-all girl in class, and she went to an exam, and she gave a response, and the teacher contradicted her, and she decided that that is a really good time to be herself and really put that teacher into place. Turns out she was right. Turns out the teacher then had further questions that lasted for the next 50 minutes, until she didn't know how to respond to some of them, and she got an F. And I was with her, like, I was in the same room, I saw what happened, and when I got out, I was like, you know what, you may not have gotten an F, but you really put that teacher in her place, didn't you? You see, later on I realized that that was me being myself, and maybe it wasn't really the opportune moment to put salt in the wound when the chick was pissing her eyes because she just failed an important exam. Even though I was in the right, I mean, and I still think I am in the right. It's like it wasn't the moment to have an intellectual academic discourse with the teacher during the exam. Like, you should know your goals. You should understand why you're there. You're there to get a good grade, right? Like, that is the purpose. But maybe I shouldn't have been myself. You know, I mean, this is YouTube. We got terms of service here. Imagine if I were to having a conversation with Sargon and congratulating him for managing to flatten the curve at the diabetics hospital. You know, like, this is probably something that's hilarious for some people. Other people might not see it like that. And other people might get offended, because this is who I am. I am a person that has an aura of offense. People around me lose their shit. So I have to tone it down. I have to understand the situation that I am in. And I have to deal with it like an adult. So no, there are literally no situations where be yourself is good advice. Because number one, that means that the person doesn't have room to improve. There is nothing that they can work on. Everything is perfect. In which case, why are they asking you for advice? And the second thing, which is more important, do we really have an ourselves? Because most people act differently when they're in the family than they when at the workplace, than they when they're meeting someone new. We have like this different situational protocols that we need to accommodate to when navigating through life. There is no such thing as yourself. It's just being aware of the situation and taking the correct manners. But anyway, right, let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.